In this episode of Kestoshi, I talk to David Sterling of Good Gaming. David, a former Sony executive, explains how Good Gaming created the successful MicroBuddies game and how they shot to success by putting community, brand, and story first, so that their MicroBuddies game can last for generations. David also talks about how the game targets multiple platforms and not just crypto. So, as well as being available on the Polygon blockchain, they are also available outside of crypto on Roblox. We also talk about the future of interactive entertainment. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Kastoshi, and today we have David Sterling from Good Gaming, an interactive gaming company. So, David, could you tell us a little bit about what your company does?
Sure. I'll start with our history. We're an interactive entertainment company. That is the way I describe what we do. And we started off creating interactive entertainment experiences around the Blizzard's Hearthstone game. Hearthstone still is a very popular card battle game from Blizzard that is very popular on both PC and I believe mobile, and it has a very big esports following. It has a very big esports component. And what we did was we built tournaments, esports tournaments for not necessarily professional players, but that level down that people, what I call regular game players, regular gamers could come in and play tournaments against other gamers and win prizes, but not necessarily be professional. So we started that in 2014. We migrated, also launched a vertical that created Minecraft servers. The Minecraft is a video game that was developed by Mojang and then bought by Microsoft. It's really not necessarily a competitive game like an esports game, but is a community game where you build inside this Minecraft universe, and then there's also other servers that are launched that players can play different types of games built around the Minecraft platform. So we created this server community and launched different games like Prison and Skyblock and others, and built a community of players around these games in the Minecraft universe. Last year, we launched a new vertical that focused on crypto and blockchain and gaming. So we migrated from the Minecraft and the Hearthstone into this new growing area of crypto gaming and blockchain integration into a gaming type experience. We launched our MicroBuddies game in December on the Polygon platform, and most recently announced that we're going to launch our PFP collection called the Genesis Collections, which starts soon. That is a 10-character collection of NFTs that are part of the MicroBuddies universe. And also just announced yesterday that we are bringing our MicroBuddies IP to the Roblox gaming platform, which is a very popular gaming platform where users create all types of different gaming experiences utilizing the Roblox platform and tool set.
Okay. Oh, very interesting. So how did you personally get to this stage? How long have you been with the company, and what was your interest
I
in?
just celebrated my 5th month anniversary. I have been in the entertainment and technology, the merger of entertainment and technology most of my career. I did, among other things, I did business development for Sony Pictures for 17 years. There, I helped launch a lot of home entertainment package media, such as Blu-ray and DVD,
Oh, wow.
UMD, my teams helped build the PlayStation Store that you see on the 4 and the 5. I launched game publishing verticals inside of Sony Pictures.
PlayStation is very dear to my heart, so.
Oh, okay, good. So we also did development inside of PlayStation Home. I don't know if you remember on the PS3, there's a 3D virtual world.
I actually tried it. I did try it.
Yep. So we were in there. We also did a lot of VR and AR development for Sanzar, which is the next iteration of Linden Labs.
Second Life, you mean?
Second Life, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the next iteration of Second Life. I believe it's still around. I'm not sure how much traction they've got, but so I've been at the intersection of technology and gaming, entertainment for quite some time. Again, I mentioned this is my 5th month anniversary here at the company, and we're transitioning this company into going back to our roots in terms of interactive entertainment, but also we're focusing on utilizing existing platforms for our MicroBuddies IP and growing our stable of experiences and our community around that IP as we continue, as time goes on. So we have more announcements coming, but as you can see, there is a distinct strategy around the IP of MicroBuddies, and we're building around the crypto gaming, blockchain gaming, MicroBuddies game, and taking the MicroBuddies IP into all sorts of new platforms.
So MicroBuddies is a game you've created yourself?
Yes, it was developed internally, and we launched it in December in beta, and then we came out full release version, I believe, March of this year.
Okay. So how has the game? What's the reception been like?
Great so far. We have a very rock solid community. If you go on OpenSea, you'll see. Remember, this is a game and not a set of NFTs. We have very robust player base who's created, I believe, at the last time I looked, was 80,000 buddies inside of the game itself. So we have about, I believe, 1,900 owners of the MicroBuddies, and they've created 80,000 MicroBuddies. So a pretty robust community.
Okay, so how does it work? If I want to play the game, do I have to mint an NFT to play it, or?
You don't have to. You can go to, we have a marketplace you can go to and get started. We also launched what we call the Buddy Masters program. So you join our Discord. Right now, our Discord is closed because we're doing sneak peeks for the PFP project, which is coming soon. So you'll want to follow us on Twitter and get into the Discord for MicroBuddies, and then there you can interact with the community. We have a program called the Buddy Masters, where we have a select group of experienced players that will help walk you through the getting started in the game and the ins and outs and strategies of MicroBuddies.
Okay, so how do you look at the like the MicroBuddies game when, because a lot of people, when you tell them about gaming, and if you even mention NFTs, a lot of people will mention things like Axie Infinity. How do you think of your product compared to that, or what is the relationship?
I know that everyone probably has a different view on this. My view is that MicroBuddies is an intellectual property. We are a studio that develops intellectual property, and this one just happened to start in the crypto blockchain gaming area. And that as we start to expand that IP, you want to, the reason why you want to expand that IP into different platforms, and in our case it's Roblox, is because you want to develop a larger community of players and recognizability, if that is a word, of the IP itself. So I look at crypto gaming, when you develop an NFT, let's say, this not necessarily MicroBuddies, but let's just say a generic NFT, that is in a piece of intellectual property. and you have to exercise that intellectual property to its fullest extent. And in doing that, you will create awareness of that intellectual property for decades if you do it correctly, because people become familiar with an IP, and familiarity builds community, and that engagement with that IP should last a lifetime.
Okay,
and if you don't do that, you're just trying to sell an NFT to somebody based upon whatever story you have made up.
Okay, so I think you've answered my next question. So what comes first, the NFT or the brand image of the item?
Great question. I think your strategy comes first, right? If you're going to create an NFT, it's got to have a strategy behind it. And you have to have, your strategy must include not only what the IP is going to be like, what's the characteristics of your IP, but who is your audience? You have to know your customer. Who is your audience, and who is your target audience? Like, your audience today may be more of a blockchain gamer, but tomorrow it might be a 5-year-old who grows up with that IP. As they're getting older, they become more familiar with it and transition into new types of experiences around that IP because of the familiarity. And I think a great example of this is Marvel, DC, things like that. When I grew up reading comic books, all the different Marvel characters that you see today in movies.
I'm a big comic book fan as well, and I like
Okay,
Marvel,
great. So
yeah.
So are you a collector?
I'm not a collector, but I do. I love reading Spider-Man and and other Marvel
So
stuff.
I grew up collecting as a kid. I collected comic books, not just necessarily because I was interested in collecting. It's just because I read a lot of comic books. So inherently, I just became a collector. And I became familiar with all these different characters when I was a kid. And now you have Marvel that now has come out with video games and movies around these familiar and dear IP that now I become a fan. I'm a fan because I was a fan when I was a kid based on all those stories and art that I read and looked at. And that's what I think is important about developing an IP and then using it to go into the NFT space. You have to have a strategy to build that recognition, to build that community, to build that engagement across a broad spectrum demographic. So you're not just pigeonholed into people that are interested in crypto gaming, for instance.
Okay, so it wasn't a case that someone at Good Gaming was like playing and suddenly they saw someone using NFTs and it's like, oh look, this is taking off. It was actually a purposeful decision to develop IP content and using proper design and where it's a proper strategy. It's not just
right. Yeah, there's a story behind MicroBuddies that we really haven't exercised yet because it's going to be coming in an interactive form. And that's intentional because stories build engagement. Art will only take you so far. If there isn't a story behind it, if there isn't an engagement behind it, you're really just trying to sell a piece of art that what you've had how much effort behind to build a community, to build engagement, to build familiarity. You have to have all those foundations. You have to have that foundation. You have to have those building blocks to be able to build out your community and get that connection with that community and build that bond and strengthen that bond to your players, to your prospective players, to players that are going to be 10 years from now, to 20 years from now, when you start releasing products and around that IP, that people that grew up with it now are getting their kids familiar with it.
So do you think this is a mistake that a lot of companies or creators make, that they just kind of throwing stuff at the like mud at the wall to see what sticks, and they're not?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I could call it a mistake. I would say, is that really a strategy? Throwing everything at the wall and see what sticks. I'm not sure that's a strategy. Sometimes people are very lucky with it, right?
Yeah,
But if you look at the really popular NFTs, it's a strong community. These things have stories behind them. They have those ties that bind you to the IP rather than it's just cute art. Now, I remember a time when I would listen to podcasts about this space, the NFT space, and people would just be buying things because they like the art.
mm.
Well, that only gets you so far, right? In anything. Oh, I like the way it looks. Okay, let's talk about cars, right? That car looks really cool. I want that car because it looks cool and it'll make me cool. Well, you get in the car and it's a lemon, right? It doesn't run right. You're always in the shop. Is that really building a bond between you and the consumer? And is that really building a positive community?
Well, I think it's two things, because if you have a good community, they'll actually forgive a lot of mistakes as well. If they buy into the story. I mean, it's interesting what you're saying, because when you're talking about the strategy to build an IP brand, what I'm thinking about is something actually that all businesses should be making sure they're doing, whatever they're doing, is to make sure they have that community of people who actually care about what they're doing first.
It's the number one thing, right? It's the number one thing. If you're going to have a product, you better have a good community. You can't have a product without a community. And I think, the real work in doing so is where a company succeeds and fails. Are they going to put in the work to build that community, to build that connection to the brand? You see some companies like in fast food that just still rely on that bond that was built when they were kids versus a company that likes to reach out on social media and entertain their community, which in turn gives them more visibility to those that may not be familiar with the brand and its story, but all of a sudden, becomes interested in it because there's a good story behind it. It's engaging. It's not just about price and things like that. I think every company that has a product should be entertaining their community in some way. Okay. No matter if you're building nuts and bolts or you're building, the next Marvel character movie. You have to be entertaining your customer.
Okay, I like that. Okay, I want to come to the Roblox thing in a minute, but actually, yeah, let's maybe first I'll talk about how you built your community, and then I wanted to ask you about Roblox. How did you build your community in the beginning? Did you build the product first, or did you build the community first?
Well, the product came first, and it kind of happened at the same time. This is before my time here. The product came in, people were interested in it. It built over time, and then the Discord started. Discord is huge in our business. It's everything, and I think it should be, whether it's Discord or some other type of Discord service. You have to have that minute by minute interaction with your community. We're in Discord all day long, talking to our community.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
We play poker on Fridays with our community. We have contests with our community all week long. It's important to build that bond, and that's something that we started before I got here, but really started to pay more attention to it after I got here, because as we discussed, it really is all about community and building that bond between the people that are creating the product and the people that are buying the product.
But if you go to a company, you said you'd worked at Sony, so if you go to one of the larger companies, they don't have like a big Discord server, though, do they?
No, it should.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
I mean, social media is that kind of their social media is that platform, but then you see these. You go on Twitter, Instagram, and you see these large communities, but do you see the interaction? Do you see a company consistently building and strengthening that bond between themselves and their consumer? I know that I love products that if I like a product, I want to talk to people about it, right? And I want to talk to people who actually make the product about it. I want to share my feelings, and I want to make sure that they hear what I have to say about the product, and they respond to me. Now I have a relationship with that brand,
Okay.
and that is very important.
Okay. And
Probably
can I ask one more thing before I get to the Roblox?
sure.
So what does I know. So you're really a brand first, and crypto is one part of that,
That's
as I
correct.
understand
Yeah,
it. And
absolutely.
but what does crypto add to your like what can crypto do in that medium that you can't do with other mediums though?
Well, I think that it offers you the ability to add value to your product in ways that other platforms can't, um, possibly might in the future. But it's really, it's tip of the spear type interactive entertainment.
Mm,
Um, I believe the smart contract is really the gem of the entire experience because of what you can do. We are constantly trying to understand the smart contract and its capabilities and possibilities,
mm,
as time goes on,
mm,
and come up with different ways to improve our experience, enhance our experience,
mm,
uh, entertain our customers in new ways so that they can the product
mm,
is not stagnant and
mm,
is dynamic.
mm.
I think that is the key to the entire space, is that smart contract.
But
And
your micro buddies, I mean, because if when you have a system like this, you have the smart contract side, which is on Polygon in your case,
yeah,
and then you have the like the website and the other mobile on top of it. Um, so can you move your like the stuff with your smart contracts? Does that mean that people can use the NFT assets outside of your own games, outside of your own
we
platform?
haven't got to that point. I think that's something that we're always looking at, like how do
Mm,
we enhance it in that way?
mm,
But when I talk about enhancing the product, I talk about making the product more dynamic
mm.
in terms of the experience that they have with our product. Yeah, and I think that when our PFP launches, you're going to see a lot of that. So
PFP, could you define that? Just
profile picture, NFT. PFP is kind of the profile. It's the when you have a game. Let's start at the beginning. When most times, if you look at last year, a lot, and maybe the year before, a lot of projects launched with the PFP project, which is basically just the NFT. So you have a picture, a JPEG
mm,
that you can buy and own,
mm,
right? Um, and then a lot of places came with the game afterwards.
mm,
Like here, okay, here's some utility to it, and now here's some interactivity to it.
mm,
So you get a gaming experience, right?
mm.
We kind of went the other way. We developed the game first, and now we're coming out with the NFTs.
Oh,
And
I see.
the
Okay.
NFTs are going to be dynamic.
Mm.
We haven't announced anything about that part, so you'll have to stay tuned.
Okay. And okay, so now I'd like to get to Roblox. So how does the product relate to Roblox?
The Roblox thought came about when looking at our MicroBuddy characters, and the characters have personality, and the MicroBuddies has a story, and the MicroBuddies game has a purpose to it. There's a purpose to playing the MicroBuddies game,
Mm,
and all of those factors point to developing experiences outside of the crypto space and turning the MicroBuddies into an IP that makes sense for a platform like Roblox with a demographic like Roblox, so that a whole different spectrum of people can become familiar with the IP, and as they age, will already have a deep bond to the IP itself.
Ah,
And,
okay, that makes sense. So,
and
so, so so
with
the
that,
advice there is to not just be into not just be into crypto, but also actually looking You're saying that when you look at the IP as a whole, there's just like crypto is just one platform of many, and Roblox is another platform.
Absolutely. Yeah, and MicroBuddies is an intellectual piece of property. So
Okay.
you were looking at MicroBuddies in terms of characters
Mm,
and IP that we
mm,
can take into other platforms and other types of experiences,
uh,
merchandise, and things like that. But we still have to roll out the entire story of the MicroBuddies, which
mm.
we haven't even started yet, but it's coming. That's coming very soon.
Okay, so how does that work in Roblox? Because I've only played Roblox a few times,
Hmm.
and I've not created any games in it, and I haven't designed any like custom characters because I know you can change the face and the clothes and
Yeah.
stuff.
Hmm.
So how does Roblox work? Is it like an in Roblox
Well,
store or
you can
what?
look at Roblox as a metaverse. We
Mm,
do. That's
mm,
how we look at it, right? It's a engaging. It's an encompassing platform where you as a player can go in and experience all these different types of
mm,
experiences, all the
mm,
way from playing simple games
mm,
to losing yourself inside of a virtual world and
mm,
becoming something different and
mm,
going on all these types of experiences that you may not have available to you in the
mm,
real world.
mm,
So, and to me, with my experience in PlayStation Home
mm,
and help building out that platform for Sony Pictures
mm.
and PlayStation, that's really about what I see as Roblox is today. It's a metaverse, right? It's a
Mm,
virtual world,
mm,
and it may appear to be just a lot of small type games from UGC, UGC games,
mm,
but
mm.
it's really a lot more than that, and we plan to exercise it to its fullest.
Okay, so it's not UGC meaning user generated content games.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So when will people be able to actually see your content on Robloxes?
Very soon.
Okay, okay,
Very, very soon.
okay. This is interesting. Yeah, as soon as this episode is over, I'm going to be really looking deep into this because this is so interesting for me.
Well, I think you have to see the forest through the trees, and because when you go on Roblox, a lot of people just see a lot of kids games, right? Kids
Yeah,
games developed by kids games, and
yeah.
Roblox has built a great business around that,
Mm,
but it is a lot more than that.
mm. And I guess so. Like with your like, I'd in another um, episode of this podcast, I'd interviewed some people who are making like a hyper realistic, or they want to make hyper realistic metaverse. That's what they're developing. So, one question for you then is if you're making IP, when you make it, like if you go to Roblox, you've got a kind of that sort of blocky feel. But then if you go to hyper realistic, the asset would look very different. So how do you so do you have to think about how your content and your intellectual property can look at different resolutions and in different types of formats, or do you just say we're going to design Spider-Man and like if it was Marvel, like
Well,
we'll
I
do.
mean, if you look again, I look at Marvel for the way forward on that, right?
Mm,
You have NDC and others.
mm,
You have Lego Marvel, and you
mm,
have the movies.
mm,
And nobody see and Lego Batman is
mm,
a very successful convert went from gaming to movies and was very low res, if you want to use that term,
mm.
and still worked well because it was well done. I don't
Yeah,
think
that's true. Actually,
I don't
I'll
think
admit I
that
can't watch Lego Batman or Lego Marvel ones though. But
sometimes you can, but if it's well done, you'll watch it. If the story is good, it's
yeah,
engaging. You see, I think you will because people love it. People still
yeah.
love the stories, and they'll forgive the blocks just because. I think if you chase that hyper realism, you don't forget about the story.
Yeah, true. That's true. You have to have a story,
So
or it doesn't
yeah, you've
matter.
seen a lot of really well, realistic looking things just fall flat because the story wasn't engaging or the experience wasn't engaging.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that because I mean, growing up with computers mostly in the early '80s, for me, um, I remember games on my Commodore 64 or on the Spectrum, and
Sure.
sometimes I see the games that we had then, and I'm like, there's not really much changed. It's like to today, the
Well,
graphics are better, but that's not what engages me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Are you really playing that game for the art? No, you're not.
No, no.
No, and you can compare. Look at the Call of Duty franchise, right?
Mm,
The gameplay becomes more complex. The loadouts become more complex.
mm.
Everything becomes more complex. But you still haven't. Have you done better job than Modern Warfare?
Well,
Before.
I mean, talking about Call of Duty because I've played it quite a few times.
Okay.
Even in every hyper realistic game today, every AAA game, they have hours and hours of cutscenes because they still need the story. I mean,
Right.
look at Drake's Uncharted, which is something probably closer to your heart, being at Sony. Drake's Uncharted. I mean, I've seen people. I've played the first game, and but with all of the other games, I played them for like half an hour, but then I just watched the story on YouTube, and I
Right.
enjoyed the story more
Right.
watching
Star
on
Wars is
YouTube than
just
playing
like
the
that.
game.
Star Wars is like that, right?
Yeah.
Star Wars franchise is like that also. You can watch fan made or professionally made stories around the Star Wars franchise that may or may not is not the movie quality. I mean, it's not
Mm.
movie quality, but it's engaging. The story is great, and
Yeah,
you can.
yeah. Like I listened to the Darth Sidious audio books, which happened way before Star Wars Episode One,
Uh-huh,
and it was just amazing. I was
right,
just like, actually, it was better than any films. It was so
right,
good.
right, right. That's
You
right.
know,
And
of
then
course, I had the
fulfill.
visuals because I've seen the films as well. That did help, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, okay, I understand what you're saying. So your intellectual property that you've made that can be used in different platforms.
Oh
I
yeah,
guess even books, it could be.
yeah. I'm we call it exercising it. Yeah. The IP is the IP, and it's not. It starts off in one kind of form with the artwork that we have today, and it's going to transition into Roblox art
Mm,
style, and it's just going to be just as fun as an engaging, and
mm,
probably even more engaging
mm,
than certainly more than NFTs. But
mm,
our NFTs are going to be dynamic also. So it really is about engaging the consumer, not about the quality of the artwork.
mm.
That may be the initial attraction, um, but it's not going to hold you there.
Okay, okay. So I guess you've kind of um, answered some of my next question, and I was going to ask you specifically, like, about where good gaming is going with this intellectual property, and whether you'll be using like NFTs as some sort of like, like as tickets for something.
We haven't got to that point. We're still focusing on making sure that our NFT projects are as engaging as possible. And
Okay,
that
yeah.
we're at the same time, we're also exercising, and I already said what that means to us. And I don't want to keep repeating myself because people get bored. But really, exercising that IP to the best of our ability in
Mm.
all sorts of different types of experiences to help build that bond between us, our IP, and the user.
Okay, so you're saying you actually, okay, I like that answer because I heard an interview from the founder of a crypto gaming company, Gala Games, and he said that a lot of people are trying to build crypto mechanics into their games, and I think he said he thought it was a mistake. He said first you should just build a good game, because
Yeah,
if people are only going to your game because it's an NFT, you don't have longevity.
right. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Got to
Okay.
be
So
the engagement, engagement, engagement. It's all engagement in community. That is what we focus on.
yeah. Okay, makes sense. Okay. So what are the other future plans that you can talk about with Good Gaming?
Well, since we are a public company here in the U.S., we can only talk about what's been announced.
Okay. Okay.
And we've announced Roblox.
Mm,
We have more announcements coming up.
mm,
We have our PF. We have the Genesis collections, the NFTs
mm,
coming
mm,
shortly,
mm.
and that's our roadmap to date.
Okay. Okay. And have you? Okay. This is probably stuff you can't talk about as well, because I was going to ask, have you considered going into other things like Axie Infinity and other games? But
Yeah, we haven't announced anything of like that yet.
okay, I have to try. And
Yeah,
okay, one final question then is,
sure.
where do you see the industry in 5 years? Like with not just crypto, but gaming in general. Like, I know that I've spoken to people who are saying, "Oh, crypto gaming is going to take over everything," and other people saying, that companies like Electronic Arts are going to just go into crypto. It's all going to kind of merge into one. And what's your take on where the whole thing's going to be in
Well,
say
I
five or
think
10 years?
I think the most important thing that in the short time in the short term is the rise of the subnets. I think that's very important. Um,
What do you mean the
that
subnet?
the subnet is you have the second tier, you have the first tier like Ethereum, and then the second tier, the rise of the second tier,
Oh, the layer twos, the layer two,
layer
light.
two,
Yeah, yeah.
to be able to lower those gas fees.
Mm,
I think everything that makes that experience um, easier to use
mm,
for new players, the next 10 million, 100 million users,
mm,
that is what we should be focused on.
mm,
Um, because we can't have a stale community.
mm,
You have to be expanding your community, and I think anytime that you can make your experiences easier to use to
mm,
attract new people is
mm,
important is job one, right?
mm,
So I would hope that the industry sees that
mm,
as job one and focuses on making those types of our experiences easier to use and easier to understand for
mm,
people that are not well versed in crypto and crypto gaming.
mm.
It's got to become easier to use.
Okay. And what about companies like Electronic Arts? Because I'm thinking about what you said earlier, that it's all about intellectual property, because
Yeah,
they
right.
have a lot of intellectual property, but I'm not sure if they have that story kind of. They're more into making the game. I'm not sure if they have do they have the actual intellectual property to make sure they can cross to other mediums?
Well, have you seen it? I haven't. Um,
No, I
I
haven't. No.
Yeah, I think that if you look at types of games, it's always going the other direction. You're taking these great stories into video games,
Mm,
and that's probably something that I would do. I would focus on building our stories around our intellectual property.
mm,
There was an interesting game that came out a couple of years ago called For Honor,
mm,
and the only reason I bring it up is because um, it was just visible to me at the time. I was
mm,
watching it closely, and
mm,
the sword fighting is always tough in video games. It's
mm,
never,
mm,
it's very difficult to do well.
mm,
But there was some really cool stories I think that could have been told around that IP that would have helped. I think the community have a better engagement with the property and help them get through some tough times in terms of the controls that were
mm,
an issue, I guess, with the game itself. I think if you're going to develop an intellectual property with that kind of
mm,
backing, that you have to be a storyteller first. That
mm,
before you even start with the game, we're going to build a
mm,
game about sword fighting. Well,
mm,
what's the story behind it? How's this going to have legs to it? How's this going to last, 5, 10, 20 years? And if you
mm,
don't have that kind of Star Wars type story, you
mm,
have the prequel stuff,
mm.
the sequel stuff, and the main story, then you haven't got started. You haven't started yet.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking about the sword fighting mechanics, I think of The Secret of Monkey Island and how they used to have. Do you remember the point and click from Lucasfilm where they'd throw insults at each other when they
I
were
don't
sword
remember that.
fighting?
That sounds great though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was going to. Have you got anything else to add?
No,
Actually,
I think I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for having
yeah,
me.
yeah. I mean, it's been you've given me so much to think about that I've actually got a lot of questions in the back of my mind that I want to
Well,
ask.
I look forward to coming back, and I'll have more to say and more to unveil and talk about. So I look forward to the next time we get together.
Okay, thanks a lot, David. All right, thanks.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thanks. You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.